Hi, welcome to Connective TV. I'm Jess DeRouge. Today we're joined by Melanie Lobb from Westpac, Rebecca Goodwin from ANZ, and our very own Amanda Sterling, who is our Head of Compliance. And today we're talking about the very important topic of what makes a good quality application. So before we get started, Amanda, why is this such an important topic?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. It's really important, most of all, from a customer service experience. So a good quality application is going to give the customer the best experience with your services, and ultimately that's going to lead to word of mouth referrals and continued business for you. But it's also really important from a responsible lending obligation because it does show that you've undertaken all of the verification and responsible inquiries that you do need to make, and it shows that you've actually understood what the customer needs and wants are, and you've matched that for the customer to give them an overall experience.
So Beck, one for you. We all love the one-touch approval. How does a broker achieve that?
Basically, the broker needs to understand the bank's policy and where to find the information around what requirements they need to satisfy the bank's policy in order to achieve that first touch approval. So there's many ways that the broker can do that by obviously calling their BDM to understand what is required, because all banks are different. We understand that they've got multiple lenders that they have to be up to speed with, which is very challenging. So the BDM can assist. Also on the application there's also checklists that they can refer to. So if it's a refinance, for example, they know how many refinance statements to provide, etc.
Thanks, Beck. So Mel, tell me, what are some common errors that you might see from broker applications?
Yeah, so some really common errors we have are the pay slips might be out of date. We've asked for 6 months refinance statements and we might only have 5, or they're not within date as well. A real common area we also will get is the contract of sale doesn't include exactly the same names as the client's identification. So this can be quite an issue when it gets to settlement as well. Some other major issues we probably do see as well is just in the mitigating comments, exactly what the client is wanting may not mirror up with exactly what has been input into the application. So simple things, even just as a date of birth, can be input incorrectly. You just got to be really careful with your data input as well on that, because that can be quite a compliance issue, especially in regards to responsible lending with exit strategies and ages of the clients.
Now, in terms of notes and documentation, do the assessors actually read, the story at the start, or they just go straight to the data? Tell me a bit about the importance of that.
Yeah, you've got to make sure your proposal you've put in is exactly what the client's wanting. So if they're wanting an investment loan to buy a property, then put that in the notes. It is fully read by the assessors. If it's for a wealth creation as well, it's fully also put in the notes. You just want to be careful that your notes state exactly what it is the client is wanting, but the assessor absolutely will read all the documentation, then they'll make sure, because you put in the notes exactly what the client is earning, they would check that with what you've sent along with the servicing calculator, for example.
Beck, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I spent a few years in assessment, and the best thing was to pick up an application and, we don't want war and peace, but there was just a short, sharp paragraph from the broker just explaining exactly what the client's objectives were, and so you as the assessor could understand. The assessment never meet the customer, so they have no idea who these people are. So being able to read a short and sharp paragraph, understand what the client is wanting to do, it's the best,
So with that in mind, do either of your banks, or do banks in general, have a standard opening paragraph or some templates that newer brokers could use, to kind of get started?
There aren't any templates as such. I think what's really important is to actually document the story. As Beck said, the person sitting behind the desk assessing the application has never actually met the customers. So it's very much about putting the narrative around the customer's story. So what is it that they're looking to do? What is it that their desired outcome is? And that also shows from a responsible lending perspective that the customer's needs and requirements have been met. So it's really just making sure that the person who is assessing the application really understands all the background.
All right, so listening to that, clearly that documenting the story is a really important thing that all brokers should be doing. So if we're kind of looking at what brokers should be doing in order to get that one-touch approval, documenting the story is one of the main things. Mel, what are the other two things that brokers could be doing?
Yeah, just making sure that all your pay slips, the refinance statements, everything like that is completely up to date. If you're going to give me the last year's financials, we do require obviously a notice of assessment as well for that. Another major thing is when you're doing your verification of identification that you can certify, you or the banker within Westpac can certify that. Please make sure that their middle name as per their passport or birth certificate is exactly the same as that Westpac has on their systems. So driver's licence in Victoria doesn't include middle names, so it's not an adequate form of identification. This would be one of our major issues.
So just the really small things, the middle names, the date of birth,
Yeah.
just the data integrity, that's the stuff that's actually slowing things down.
Absolutely, and that can stop it from being a one-touch file and settlement happening on time.
So it's fair to say it's worth investing the time before you send that application in just to do the double
Yeah,
check.
well, you just got to ask the client, is this your name? Have you been married? What name is on the title? You can check what name is on the title by the client's race notices. So just tiny little things like that. It's really knowing your client and making sure they've given you the correct information.
So at the start of this session, we talked about the one-touch approvals, and it's all about knowing what that bank wants, what that bank needs. I guess probably one of the biggest professional challenges that brokers are facing at the moment is staying up to date with changes in the industry, whether that be around regulation, around policy or rate. What are you guys doing? What are your banks doing in order to help brokers stay up to date with what's happening?
Yeah, so we have a Westpac Introducer Net that's got all our policies and procedures on that, which is obviously on the internet that anyone can access with their I number. We also have frequently our marketing will send out communication. If you do receive a communication from our marketing team, I would absolutely recommend opening it.
What about from ANZ, Beck?
Yeah, so at ANZ we have the broker news that goes out monthly, so any important changes or updates is always documented in there. Obviously we've got the ANZ broker portal that's kept up to date, so I also recommend to all the brokers to attend their PD days at Connective, because all the BDMs are there and we're there to have a chat and give the updates around policies. Also do the presentations there every now and then and give the updates.
Very good. And Amanda, from Connective's point of view, how are we keeping brokers up to date with changes in policy and rate?
Yeah, thanks, Jess. So we, of course, update Mercury as we are made aware of changes to any of the lender's policies. But, of course, you also have the Brokerpedia, where you can put in different scenarios and it will come up with different options from different lenders depending upon what the policies are. From a compliance perspective, we, of course, release an article in every week's Connective magazine. So it is really important to read that because it opens up to things that are happening more generally and broadly in the industry from the regulators. So one of the things that's a really hot topic at the moment is customer identified living expenses, and it's really important that you make sure that you're sufficiently documenting that and making sure that it meets at least minimum benchmarks of the HEM and specifically what the lender's policy is as well, because not all lenders use HEM.
So Mel, while we are talking about living expenses, what's Westpac doing? Where are we at?
Yeah, so with your living expenses, you do have to list in detail exactly what the client is spending. You've got to be very realistic. So if the client's children are attending private schools, please put down they're attending private schools. Ask the client exactly what they are spending per month on their phone, electricity, etc., day-to-day living costs. It must be really realistic to the client and the lifestyle they're living.
So thinking about living expenses, what is it that a bank actually looks at? Do they go through each line item?
Yeah, they do, and as do we when we're reviewing a file, because we consistently identify undisclosed debts and things like that, which it can be argued that the broker has been made aware of by being provided those bank statements. So it is really important to actually cross-reference what the customer has informed you for living expenses with their actual transactions, because those transaction statements are a wealth of information for identifying, exactly the type of customer that you are assisting at that point in time.
Now, Beck and Mel, I'm about to ask you for your close-in pieces of advice for the brokers down the barrel, but before we do, I just wanted to summarise what we've learnt today. For the one-touch approvals, it's really important that you tell the story. You guys are the spokesperson on behalf of your client, so you need to document the story and make sure that the assessor knows who they are and what it is that they want. You need to check the details, check the middle name, check the date of birth. Take the time to do the double check before you send off that application, and understand the living expenses. Have that conversation and make sure that that's displayed in your application. So before we close, I want some closing comments from each of you. Amanda, from an NCC perspective, why is the one-touch approval so awesome?
Well, as I said at the outset, it's all about the customer service that you are providing, but it really also ensures that you've undertaken your responsible lending obligations and you can articulate very clearly exactly what the customer's needs and requirements are, and that you've shown that you've done your reasonable inquiries and verification of the customer's information.
Beck, from ANZ, a piece of advice for the brokers on getting it right first time around.
So at the end of the day, the faster the turnaround, the better you're going to look in front of your customer. So really understanding what the bank's requirements are to fully assess that deal is key. The data integrity, that's a huge piece as well, so we don't get any hold-ups around settlement time. And if in doubt, make sure you just call your BDM to have a chat.
And Mel from Westpac.
So it's all about knowing your client, making sure that you have all their correct information that they've given you, checking that with their birth certificate or passports in regards to names, making sure pay slips, statements, everything like that is completely up to date, and just have your proposal exactly what it is you want the client to do, so that when it hits the assessor, they understand what you're saying, because do remember, they've never met the client.
So that about sums it up. It's all about knowing your customer, communicating that clearly to the bank, and getting all the details right first time around. I'd like to, on behalf of Connective, I'd like to thank Beck and Mel from ANZ and Westpac, and of course, Amanda, thank you for your time. We wish you luck. We really hope that you get it right first time around and that your customers are really happy with you. That was Connective TV. I'm Jess Derouge. Goodbye.